Subscribe to the Light Sports and Ultralight Flyer web video magazine with hundreds and hundreds of videos now online, including airshow coverage, Rotax engine tech tips, Rotax 377, 447, 503, 532, and 582 engine rebuilding videos, each 2 hours in length, propeller maintenance, advisories and repairs, BRS parachute saves, Bing carb updates, and much, much more. Get a yearly subscription at www.ultralightflyer.com.
And we've done a lot of interviews on a lot of new designs, but this has got to be the splash of the industry as far as introductions go.
Well, it sure looks like it. We're lucky that we came here after hours when the crowds around this airplane, which have been pretty much continuous ever since AirVenture 2010 started, and it was true last year as well. It's been inundated all week long and last year as well with people standing all over. So we really appreciate the Icon folks letting us have the airplane all to ourselves for a little while. You just got to see that very sexy wing fold mechanism. That's the automatic system. There will also be a manual with that. You got to see the gear retract, and there is also a seaplane version of this that doesn't have retractable gear. So those two features are not common to all of these airplanes as they come out, but on the A5, the other one's called the S5, that's the seaplane only, and it's got all of these nice tricks to it, if you can afford the weight. Because there are various features and options you can add to the airplane, you may not be able to have all of them at once. But for $139,000, the current asking price for this airplane, it's an awful lot of airplane for what you see here. And isn't this a gorgeous thing?
I mean, this airplane, Dan, looks like something from the future. It was like designed something for something like 30 years from now.
Well, it does look that way. And it's a whole new approach to doing this. But even more than that is the company's approach to marketing. They are not out looking for pilots. They are, of course, willing to sell this to a pilot who wants it. But their real goal is to reach outside the aviation community with an airplane that is attractive to people. That's why it's got the styling that it does. When we see the interior, you'll see that it looks more like an automobile than an airplane. And a lot of that is to say, look, there have been a couple of million people that have taken student pilot licenses to a certain point and then went away. And there's millions more that enjoy outdoor recreational vehicles, but they're not buying airplanes. What can we do to fix that? This company almost single-handedly is working on that. Of course, other companies are trying to do their bit too, but this company has that as its principal focus, and I think it's a really cool thing.
And one of the reasons is the people that are involved in this are not your age or my age. Like, they're in the 30s.
They're young guys, a bunch of young guys, a bunch of California people with all kinds of style to it. And I've likened this company in a great way to the Apple Computer Company, which is known for having marketing panache and all kinds of style, and their products are just kind of a cut above everybody else's, and that's what makes them so successful. So when you innovate to this extent, things like automatic wing fold, things like this very sexy shape, the C-wings out here that take the place of sponsons. Look at the wing, there's no sponson out there on the end of the wing. Well, how do they do that? They do this by the C-wing. This is what provides lifting surface while you're, floating surface while you're on the water. Makes it a very nice combination, makes it just slick and beautiful to look at. Even little creature comforts like the bracing around the propeller there, so you can't walk into a propeller. That's right in the propeller arc, that nice little piece back there. And it's a user-friendly device. They want to go out to places. They have a whole simulator system they're working on now too, and more programs to be able to go to, let's say, a marina and set up shop to do pilot training, and then encourage people to get in and actually fly with this airplane. Training is going to be included with the airplane, they believe.
So let's go and have a look at it. And you're going to climb in, and I'll get around the other side and shoot some video.
I get to get in this very sexy airplane. That's going to be fun. By the way, while I'm up here, before I get in, here's the latch for the canopy right here. And there's an underside of that as well, just so we know how to secure the canopy once we get inside it. Entry is very easy. You just can stand on the floor, which is very solid flooring. And once you're seated in this thing, it's got a really nice feel. But look at this panel. When we check out this airplane here, pilots are used to a whole instrument panel loaded with instrumentation. And frankly, it's a little intimidating. Thanks to the help of some automobile design companies, they were able to make this thing have the stuff it needs to be a real airplane, but look more like an automobile. And isn't that the case here? Over on what would normally be the passenger side, there's really nothing to be daunting to that occupant of that seat. So I've got my instrumentation. I'm in. There's no seat belts in this. This is a mock-up airplane, of course. This isn't an actual flying airplane, so there isn't seat belts in here now. But finally, I'm all ready to go. I've got my basic adjustments done. I've made the seat, moved the rudder pedals to where I want them to be. Now I'm ready to go fly. So you reach up. There'll probably be a nice little handle there. But here's kind of a cool thing that you're going to see with your camera, because we get the canopy down, but there's no window here. But there can be. There's a couple of places here where a window can go down in, and a nice little latch that your camera might be able to see over here that would trap that in place. And so you could have windows in a colder climate or some situation where you didn't want to have it be open. But I kind of like the idea of flying with my arm out there. That looks pretty comfortable, doesn't it?
So, control system-wise, we're dual controls.
Full dual controls, very nice position to them, very comfortable in between. Of course, we don't know exactly how that's going to feel yet, because while this airplane is flying, it's mostly being flown by, well, it is totally being flown by factory personnel as they go through their flight evaluation procedure. It has not been flown yet by anyone from the public, to my awareness. But the stick position here and the throttle position here are just about as comfortable as it can be, and it does look and feel like an automobile in almost every way. Very nice execution to the design here. But I've got airspeed, I've got altitude, round analog gauges, not fancy glass panels. Now we do see that here, and we'll come back to that. Another feature that the designer, that the principal of the company, Kirk Hawkins, insisted on having it's an AOA, angle of attack indicator. That's not a common thing on light aircraft either, although it's on all kinds of jet aircraft, and it's not a complicated instrument, so why not have it in this aircraft? Indeed, they've got it. That was his insistence. Over here, these other couple of gauges, again, very automobile-like looking, RPM on the left, fuel gauge on the right, and in the center here I've got some engine instrumentation. They're very small, but that's all you really need, and you notice they're all analog. Here in the center, in what would be our normal radio stack, but again, designed to look like an automobile, you've got your comm radio, you've got your transponder, beautifully fashioned in. They're using existing stuff out of the industry, they're just designing it in a different way, kind of the approach they took with the whole airplane here. Then underneath we've got our row of lighting situations. Here would be our landing gear indicator, a landing gear switch if we were doing this on a conventional aircraft. This one is a mock-up, so there's a different control for it here. And then the flat position indicator, flat position switch with an indicator for the trim right here. The seats in the Icon, they're very comfortable. They look really sort of firm, like they might be in a German automobile, and indeed they are firm, but they are shaped just very nicely. It feels quite comfortable on me. But they don't move. They're built right into the airplane. There's not a way you can see the way this construction is done here. This seat is not going to move. Now maybe they'll make some adjustability to the back seat. That may come as the airplane gets ready for production, which is certification maybe by the end of the year, production maybe by the end of next year is the talk at this time. And we're doing all this at AirVenture 2010, so that's the situation. But let me raise this canopy and let's have a look at how you do accommodate pilots of different sizes. Raising the canopy back up again. Don't want to let it go too fast there. Always be careful with that kind of thing, of course. And how do you adjust the seats for someone of a different height? If you can bring your camera in here a little bit, the same thing is on both sides. Here's a handle in my hand, and it's a crank handle. And as I crank on that handle, it moves very easily. The rudder pedals come back and forth over a range that should accommodate most pilots. They've also got one more little thing here, nice little handhold to help you as you stand up in this airplane. It's got a nice solid floor. A lot of light aircraft don't have a real solid floor, and you have to step on the seats. I've never liked doing that. So this one with its canopy that goes up so high allows you to stand up directly inside the aircraft and exit and enter without having to stand on the seats, and I like that quality.
Well, what kind of power are they going to be using on it then?
They've chosen to use the Rotax 912, and they've got it mounted in a pusher configuration. We don't see a lot of pushers. We see mostly tractor engines or engine in the front with a propeller in the front. But because this is a seaplane, and to give the user the experience of a wide open environment, it's really nice when it's pusher. And they've done some extra work to get the cowling shaped just so that the cooling works out well. That's always a problem, or can be a problem, in a seaplane with an aft engine in a pusher configuration. Cooling can be a problem. I know they've worked really hard to get to that level.
What about the performance specs on it?
Well, of course, they're just in preliminary testing now, so they haven't really run the full gamut of it. But this is a seaplane. It's clearly got some extra features to it that are not going to make it the very fastest of the batch. And although retractable gear is going to make it a mighty clean-looking airplane, my guess is we're going to see performance numbers in about the 110 to 115 knot range. And I don't know what they've decided for fuel yet. I think that's probably another one of those things that will depend somewhat on how the overall package allows for loading. They do have a nice baggage area back here, and it goes down pretty deep. And again, it's all just finished like an automobile, like a fine automobile would be at that. But with these little quarter windows that we've got back here, I can turn around and I can see I can almost see the tailplane from here. I can certainly see it well enough to do some pre-flight checks at it. So another one of the distinguishing things about this airplane is the way it's got this all automobile dash. We kind of talked about that before. Certainly it conveys that image right away. But here we've got, this looks like an automobile to me, except that it says airspeed, it says altimeter, and of course it's got the typical adjustment. It's got this angle of attack indicator, which is a simple enough instrument, but often found only on more expensive aircraft, and yet it's a simple instrument. But Kirk Hawkins, the CEO of the company, who's a jet pilot himself, wanted to have that on there. Down here we've got fuel gauge. Over here we've got engine RPM. And so your engine instruments are clustered down here in the lower segment of this panel. And down here we've got cylinder head temperature, oil pressure, oil temperature, all the things you need. And I'm guessing some annunciator lights in here. In the center of the console here, you've got your comm radio, you've got your transponder, and you've got a series of lighting switches or other switches, floodlights, taxi lights, C-wing lights. That's a light that comes on over these C-wings we talked about when we were outside, so that when you get out of the aircraft, you have something that, if it's conditions are getting a little dark or something, you can see what you're doing. And one more thing that's important on any seaplane, and that's a bilge pump. Got to be able to get the water out of the basement, out of the lower side of the aircraft. And just finally some heating and cooling controls for the pilot. But that's not all. We've got more. Back behind me here, you wonder how those wings fold. Well, if I move and a parachute, BRS ballistic parachute system is available, I'm just going to tuck the warning flag out of the way for a moment. Back here, right behind my hand, right in front of my hand, there are two buttons. One faces forward, one faces back. That's the wing fold mechanism. And then there's a great big handle up here, which provides for a couple of pins that go into the wing and lock it securely so those wings can't move once they get closed. So I asked the question, well, the pilot's flying along and enjoying himself, not watching what the occupant is doing. Can they just reach up and press a button and all of a sudden you've got wings starting to fold while you're in flight? Not a good thing. They say no, because there's a dynamic pressure switch that tells if you have any movement at all, in which case that wing retract mechanism is not going to work. So they've got that figured out pretty well. Behind that, a series of circuit breakers, kind of out of the way, but where you can reach them easily. And right behind that is the fuel switch. And the tank itself is not in the wings, which makes sense. If you're going to have folding wings, why put gas in the tank? Now you got an extra complication. So they brought all the fuel is right down here behind the right seat, and it's a 20-gallon tank. Which is, again, maybe not quite as long as it is on some of the other aircraft we got in the LSA space that have as much as 35 gallons. But in a seaplane, you typically don't fly for hundreds and hundreds of miles, and 20 gallons of gas is going to give you probably 4 hours of operation, and that's plenty for most people. So that kind of takes us through here. The one last thing that we can see from your position is when we bring the canopy down, which I won't do to block the camera. Here's your latching mechanism from the inside, and there's a light switch on the top for locking it from the outside.
So if we wanted to get some more information on the airplane, Dan, where would we go?
Well, we go to the name of the company is Icon, just like computer icon, ICON, iconaircraft.com.
And do you have a flight report on this one, Dan?
No, but it's one I'm lusting for, so I hope I get this pretty soon. It'll probably be a year or more yet before they start letting any media types fly, but I'm going to look forward to it, and when I do, and other news that they've released so far is already available on my website, bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com.